Humans have evolved so quickly, over such a short period of time, that our bodies have not had the chance to catch up. This phenomenon has led to our body being adapted to a world that no longer exists. Now, what do I mean by this? Since obviously the world today and the world from 300,000 years ago when humans first appeared are both the planet Earth. Well, what I mean by this is that the threats to our fitness have changed. Instead of being preyed on by big cats, bears, and birds of prey, we now face deadlines, examinations, finals, projects, and the burden of high grades. However, it's not like you will die by missing a lecture or getting a bad grade, so how can predators to early humans and schoolwork be in any way equivalent? Well, you may not know this, but stress is fatal.
We respectfully acknowledge the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam nations, on which SFU Burnaby is located.
You may have heard the term evolutionary mismatch before. It is a phenomenon which describes how organisms have traits that have been adapted to a past environment, which are now at disadvantage. One example of this is stress. All organisms have a similar stress response, but different hormones: cortisol in most mammals and fish, and corticosterone in rodents, birds, reptiles, and amphibians. The stress response is highly conserved across all organisms, and from this we can infer that the stress response is crucial to an organism's survival because it hasn't evolved to be something else. This response includes activation of the sympathetic nervous system and hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and release of the glucocorticoid hormone to the effector organs.
Stress is an autonomic response to pressure, threats, or environmental changes, such as if you are facing an avalanche or having to cross a Getchi bridge across a river, or the appearance of a predator. Activated by the hypothalamus when the amygdala senses danger, triggers two key systems: the sympathetic nervous system and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. These two pathways work together to produce a rapid acting response to a perceived threat, releasing epinephrine and norepinephrine.
Your central nervous system has two divisions: the autonomic nervous system and the somatic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is divided into two subdivisions: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Stress affects the body through inducing sympathetic stimulation, which leads to an increased heart rate and force of contraction, bronchodilation in the lungs, increased blood coagulation and vasoconstriction, and mydriasis. As a result, your muscles receive more energy and oxygen. You are less likely to bleed out, and your eyes are alert and hyperfocused. All of these physiological modifications to your basal sympathetic tone are meant to help you overcome or escape a threat. The stress system evolved in a way to benefit human survival, but it was adapted to an environment where stressors were mostly acute. Sustained activation of the SNS and the HPA can lead to adverse effects. So what role does the HPA axis play in the stress response? The pituitary gland releases cortisol-releasing hormone, which stimulates the secretion of adrenal corticotropic hormone. ACTH then travels through your bloodstream to your effector organs, such as your eyes, GI system, heart, lungs, and muscles. But if cortisol is an anti-inflammatory steroid hormone, then why do we attribute high levels of the steroid to stress? Cortisol is secreted by the adrenal glands specifically to manage stress. Because the body continues to release relatively large amounts of the hormone into the bloodstream during times of high stress, this makes cortisol a reliable physiological indicator of stress load.
So the human stress system was designed to benefit us, but it was adapted to an environment where stresses were mostly acute. Sustained activation of the SNS and HPA can lead to adverse effects.
Sympathetic overactivation has been attributed to various clinical manifestations, and it's not just high blood pressure as you would expect. Atherosclerosis, insulin resistance, and vascular hypertrophy are all included in the list of pathologies you can develop. Sustained activation of the SNS can lead to adverse health outcomes, such as increased risk of myocardial infarctions, cardiovascular disease, mortality, and atherothrombotic events. Let's go find some health science students in their natural habitat. Today we'll be interviewing health science majors about their stress levels using the Cohen Perceived Stress Scale. The PSS is a questionnaire often used to measure how unpredictable or stressful an individual's life has been over the past couple of months. The specific PSS we'll be using is the Cohen PSS 10. What are your PSS scores?
21.
It's 19.
11.
25.
12.
What are some activities or mindsets you adopt to help improve your stress levels?
I like playing music.
Be in nature, such as snowboarding.
Positive thinking?
Playing basketball and piano.
Journaling.
What are you currently most concerned about?
Exams.
Career.
My attention span.
Exams and future work.
The amount of projects and stuff that I have to do, both inside of school and outside of school. So I tend to be a yes man.
From the 17 students we asked, the mean score was 18.29 with a sample standard deviation of 5.72, which falls under the category of moderate stress, but has a lot of variability. Considering all of the health outcomes we just talked about, the fact that scores reached as high as 26 in university students is a matter of concern. Most students point to abstract stresses as their main worries: workload, exams, success. And if you ask any other student, they will likely agree. How did you do on the midterm? Did you get a perfect score on the quiz? Are you ready for finals?
How many
How many
volunteer
volunteer hours do you have? Is your GPA high enough?
Are we ever going to make it?
So we left the trailhead at around 12, and it's around 2:30 right now, and we're 5 kilometers in.
Hello, we just reached the junction and now we're on the way to Garibaldi Lake.
Black Tusk over there.
Wait! No, wait. Dude, that looks like the spot where Dr. Lechner took the photo of lecture 27. Wow.
We're all the way down here, and we're almost at the top, and it's so steep, and we almost died, but it's okay.
Yo, what's up, fellow students and professor? If there are multiple professors watching this video, who knows? I mean, it's probably gonna be a great video, one to watch, rewatch even. Funny story. We were meant to climb Panorama Ridge, which is that one over there. I'll point with my pointing stick. And we ended up climbing 3/4 of Black Tusk. Top's over there.
So about there was where we were supposed to go, and instead we climbed up this whole steep section here, and that's where we were in the beginning of the day. Our campsite is probably right there, this side, but look at this view.
The view is incredible.
Yeah.
Definitely a cortisol lowering view.
This mountain here I'm pretty sure this is Mount Garibaldi, and that's where the lake takes its name from. It's actually called Inchkai by the indigenous people here, and you can also see the House Sound crest right there. You see the water? That's where the water is. North Mountains over there, and behind us is Black Tusk.
Yeah, good times. Are we hiking back now? My stress definitely feels lower.
Hello.
Hi.
You may be wondering, why did we go on this trip in the first place? We were hoping to replicate Chang et al.'s study on the effects of outdoor activities on college students' stress levels, using ourselves as the participants. So, here's the abstract for our case study.
The human physiological stress response is evolved for acute survival threats and is poorly adapted to chronic modern stressors, such as academic performance. Acute activation of the SNS and the HPA provides beneficial outcomes for the body, such as increased energy availability and physiological modifications. These are meant to aid in fight or flight responses as a way to increase chances of survival.
However, with the modern academic environment in the universities, students constantly face abstract stresses such as projects and exams that often result in the chronic activation of the SNS and HPA. This continual activation can lead to adverse health outcomes if sustained for a long period of time. This is an example of evolutionary mismatch where the fight or flight reaction was once beneficial to our survival and is now a detriment when chronic activation is the new norm. Chang et al.'s study explores the impacts of outdoor adventure programs on college students' stress levels.
This case study mimics the research by Chang et al. With a smaller sample size, n equals 2. The case study explores the effects of outdoor physical activity on vagal tone, measured by heart rate recovery, and stress, measured by resting heart rates and PSS-10. This study proposes outdoor physical activity as a buffer to stress in university students, and this project addresses a health concern within the undergraduate population, which is the normalization of chronic stress during a critical development window. As young adults, university students are in an age where the early onset of chronic stress can compound and predispose them to downstream adverse health outcomes. Heart rate was tracked at 1 week before the trip, during the trip, and 1 week after the trip, using optical heart rate sensors. Heart rate recovery was measured for the two primary strenuous segments as a physiological marker for vagal tone return after exposure to a stressor. Resting heart rate was also collected immediately upon waking to determine the baseline, and also served as a proxy for diurnal cortisol levels.
PSS surveys were also taken as a psychometric assessment using the Cohen PSS-10 during the same time frames to control for the diurnal rhythm of cortisol, which basically means it fluctuates throughout the day. It starts high and then decreases as the day progresses, meaning we have to standardize for it.
This is the case study timelines.
Heart rate data revealed different results for student 1 and student 2 across the study period. Of note, student 1 experienced a significant physiological shift in post-hike phases. There was a 22.5% decrease in mean resting heart rate compared to the pre-trip baseline. In contrast, student 2 maintained a stable cardiovascular profile with no significant fluctuations. This stability persisted throughout the active phases and into the post-hike phase, while student 1 demonstrated a rebound effect following the removal of academic stresses and the introduction of outdoor physical activity. Student 2's physiological state remained largely resistant to both environmental and physical stresses, suggesting a higher threshold for autonomic disruption. Time to discuss the perceived stress scores. During the baseline phase, student 1 recorded a perceived stress score of 25. In the backcountry, subjective stress scores decreased by 48%. Scores decreased by 16% from 25 pre-trip to 21 post-trip. Student 2 recorded a score of 13 in the baseline phase, 9 and 11 in the backcountry, and 15 in the post-trip phase, showing a slight increasing trend from the pre-trip to post-trip. Discussion time! A study conducted by Pontier et al. Demonstrates the negative effects of prolonged high-altitude exposure. Elevations in this case study did not reach nearly as high, with altitudes ranging from 1,500 meters to 2,100 meters at the peak. However, we cannot rule out this effect on our resting heart rate results.
Temperatures may also have had an effect on heart rate data as well, with nightly lows reaching an estimated -5 degrees Celsius and daytime highs an estimated 23 degrees Celsius on T-sub 3, which is when the party climbed Black Tusk.
Additionally, when comparing Student 1 and Student 2's resting heart rate, there appeared a large discrepancy, which led to high variance within the results. This could be explained by the differences in lifestyle and regular exercise in the two. Since the objective of this study was to demonstrate how outdoor physical activity can be used to ameliorate stress, established athletes will not see drastic changes to their heart rate data. Heart rate recovery was measured to represent vagal tone, with a larger drop within the first 3 minutes indicating a stabilization of parasympathetic and stronger vagal tone.
Here we observe an overall increase in heart rate recovery in Student 1, going from 52 to 65, from pre-trip to post-trip. And here we can also see Student 2's heart rate recovery going from 47 to 60.
Limitation time! Who's ready? I know you are! Okay, so the first limitation that we'll be talking about is sample size and generalizability. This study utilized 2 participants, n equals 2, which has a low statistical significance because it is prone to high variability.
The next limitation is measurement accuracy. A study could be improved using salivary cortisol measured with ELISAs.
The next limitation is temporal constraints. Data was collected over a single 1-week testing window involving only one backpacking trip.
Alright, the next one is confounding physical variables. While heart rate recovery was used as a metric for vagal tone, it is heavily influenced by cardiovascular fitness. Additionally, the environmental impact of hypoxia at 2,100 meters and cold-induced thermoregulation likely placed unique demands on the heart rate that are difficult to isolate from emotional stress.
Finally, no objective psychostress test was performed before the trip.
The Trier Social Stress Test is basically a quick examination on psychosocial stressors, such as a 5-minute public speaking test or mental arithmetics. Further research should implement a larger sample size and age variance around the typical undergraduate age demographic, so around 18 to 25, typically. We think it would also be beneficial for subsequent studies to have different trial groups in order to determine whether the outdoor activity portion actually has an effect on stress, or the effects were just due to separation from schoolwork and other looming responsibilities. Here are our proposed trial groups. This is to isolate the effects of going outdoors. An avenue we would also like to explore is taking actual salivary cortisol measurements in addition to the PSS and HRR assessments. The diurnal nature of cortisol release should also be considered when creating a protocol for its collection and measurement.
Conclusion time! This case study provides preliminary evidence for the evolutionary mismatch hypothesis. The participants demonstrated measurable shifts in psychological and physiological metrics. Student 2 demonstrates the effects of baseline cardiovascular conditioning, whereas Student 1 demonstrated how nature-based interventions can serve as a buffer for the effects of stress.
Ultimately, these findings suggest that outdoor physical activity can serve as a good buffer against the adverse health outcomes associated with modern academic life. So was Mom right all along about going outside and getting off that damn phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I am Shira Pito Sutan.
And I'm Jude McCochran.
Take care of yourself, and don't forget to go outside once in a while and touch some grass.
It's lucky.
We're at the barrier viewpoint right now.
Wow.
And behind us is the barrier. Did you know that this is all lava? This giant rock face was created when Clinker Peak erupted, and then it collided with a giant glacier that's supposed to be right here. And that's why it's super stark. And you know, that's probably like during the Ice Age. Like in lecture. I want to cut out the laugh.
Bridging the gap between nature and humanity.
Let's see it.
This looks inedible, but it actually smells really good because I'm so hungry.
And there's Jude cooking up the noodles.
What you got there, Jude?
Oh, I have some apple and cinnamon granola.
Okay. We got watery oatmeal because we eyeballed the water. So we got back down from the steep part over there and didn't die.
We should have invested in new shoes.
Oh my gosh! It's the parking lot! Oh my gosh, what a gorgeous view. Better than Black Tusk.